I'm Bill Anderson. I've been working cloud now, applications that is, for about 6.5 years. My career is all Oracle all the time. I started as an e-business suite implementation consultant in the middle 90s, have had increasing responsibilities, project management, project director. I was the general manager of our e-business suite practice before transitioning pretty much the whole team over to cloud. Excited to be able to present to you today our platform upgrade offering for eBusiness Suite and Peoplesoft. I'll also speak to JD Edwards. JD Edwards is kind of half-baked if you've got JD Edwards installs. What we've done is accelerated the ability to migrate from Oracle on-premise to cloud applications. Of course, then being able to deliver at a much lower cost than an implementation would take. And I'm going to review that value proposition, those accelerators. Please interrupt me if you've got questions, if I'm going too fast, too slow, if I'm going too deep or not deep enough. Wanted this to be more informative and educational as you assess the ability to take this to any Oracle on-premise applications accounts that you have that you're trying to push to cloud applications and securing a subscription. I'm fairly sure all of you know the current state and the possible opportunities that you've got installed on-premise accounts that have upgrades every 5 to 7 years. The pace of innovation is slower. Oracle's development focuses on cloud and not necessarily enhancing eBusiness Suite and Peoplesoft. You've probably even got eBusiness Suite, and we see this even more with JD Edwards, where they're off of support altogether and are just band-aiding things together. The options for them are status quo, just continue to upgrade or continue to sit on an outdated release, do a standard implementation to cloud, or our platform upgrade approach in migrating to cloud applications with those accelerators that I mentioned. Many of you have probably seen and we pulled this right from Oracle's documentation, the 2020 value realization report series. We pulled these metrics out of those value realization studies just to communicate the value proposition. Granted, hey, Connor, would you mind muting, please? Thank you. We use these percentages even with Oracle on-premise applications to communicate at a high level the value proposition of moving to cloud in the first place. The example that we use the most, just given some of the pain that we had with eBusiness Suite and trying to integrate Stellent into that, into those applications for optical character recognition, invoice imaging, and payables. That's embedded, it's in cloud, it's a process change that adds significant value when you make your AP invoice processing exception-based rather than keying everything off of pieces of paper like you're probably doing in your eBusiness Suite or Peoplesoft or JD Edwards environments. So we'll typically, when we present this to prospects and our own installed customers, is just pick off a few of these metrics as well as those value points that are in cloud applications. Why consider then, once you're bought into the value proposition of cloud applications, why consider the platform upgrade approach? And it's really the efficiencies in the accelerators. It lowers the cost of implementation when you're doing a lift and shift to the cloud and only dealing with the mandatory process changes like optical character recognition and invoice imaging and payables. But then you've also got a much lower client workload. So, and one of the areas is with data conversion, extracting data out of the on-premise applications, writing those scripts from scratch to then load the data, convert the data into Oracle Cloud applications. What we're bringing to the table, and one of the value points, and I'll go a little bit deeper here in a minute, is we've already written all of those extract scripts for Peoplesoft, for eBusiness Suite, as well as for JD Edwards, both World and Enterprise One, to get the data out in the comma delimited formats that we need to then, using file-based data import and HCM data import, get the data into cloud. And that alone saves, many weeks as well as countless hours on the customer side, in that they don't have to write those extract scripts. So at a high level, when we engage, what we're first doing is understanding the environment. We're reviewing their documentation. We've got questionnaires that specifically target how they're using eBusiness Suite and Peoplesoft to gather more information, if you will, so that we know current state and what issues there are in the current state. And then we've also got discovery scripts that we run against the Peoplesoft or eBusiness Suite environment. Those scripts do two different things. They interrogate the environment for customizations and enhancements, so that we know from a feature function standpoint what we have to map to in migrating that environment to cloud. It also looks for data exceptions. The scripts look for data exceptions so that we know in advance data that is in the environment that's going to be inconsistent with what needs to be loaded to cloud. So that all runs in more or less a discovery phase. We call it the calibrate phase, is to get an understanding of the environment, both from a business process standpoint, as well as from a data standpoint, such that we're ready to migrate to Oracle Cloud. At a little bit deeper level, here are the steps pretty much in order that we're performing. The one thing that I would add that we've also done in advance, and when we wrap up, if you're interested, I could even pop open one of the fit gap documents. So for ERP, for HCM, what we've done is by module, each feature we've mapped and gapped between Peoplesoft and cloud, as well as between eBusiness Suite and cloud. So in advance of us even walking in the door, we know the gaps on either side, so that when we enter the requirement gathering with the client, we know the gaps and are specific and targeted in the gaps between the on-premise environment and the cloud environment, so that we're able to accelerate the requirement gathering. Just to net it out, it's a lift and shift, but you're forced into making decisions on those gaps, and we focus in on the gaps between the on-premise environment and the cloud environment, which gives us then the requirements that we need to more or less do a lab upgrade of the on-premise environment into cloud. We're transporting configurations. Again, we've written the scripts to pull configurations out of the on-premise environment, eBusiness Suite and PeopleSoft, as well as JD Edwards. What we haven't done with JD Edwards that we're working on is that fit gap mapping. So that's a little bit longer of an exercise when we're dealing with World or Enterprise One environments, like what we had to do with State Bar of California as an example. We're also—
Hey, Bill.
Yes, sir.
Do you care if I ask you a question? Thank you.
Yeah,
Can
good.
you just
Go for it.
help me better understand when you say force? I know it's not as purgative as it sounds, but like, what do you mean by that? When the customer's forced to close that gap?
Where there's gaps between eBusiness Suite in Cloud and PeopleSoft in Cloud, there are decisions that need to be made on either the piece of the business process that's impacted or the configuration that's different. Another example I can give you on the HCM side, other than optical character recognition and invoice imaging and payables, is with fast formulas. So fast formulas, it's a complete rewrite. You can't migrate your fast formulas in HCM from eBusiness Suite to Cloud. It's a different tool. The configuration, as well as the tool itself that's in Cloud, for whatever reason, development rewrote it. So there's more expanded configuration capabilities and less fast formula capabilities than eBusiness Suite. And I'm just picking on an eBusiness Suite example because I'm most familiar with that one. We have to sit down and reconcile that gap in those requirements workshops, such that we're fully aligned on the pay or the time calculations that those fast formulas were written against, and how we're going to configure and deploy in Cloud. So that's just another example of where it's not completely seamless. There needs to be a little bit of human interaction to resolve those gaps.
Absolutely, but I think it's important for the team to hear, because the last thing that we want our on-prem customers to do, for their own success, is to copy and paste what they're doing on-prem today into the cloud.
Right.
You're not going to see real change, real drive towards business process transformation if that doesn't happen. Okay.
Yeah, correct. And it was interesting to me because I stumbled into, we work with in California, Sonoma, Marin area rapid transit SMART, and we took over the support of their environment. I think they were actually one of the first public sector implementations of cloud applications, and they weren't even using invoice imaging and optical character recognition, which just surprised us. So we're working with them to implement it now, and we would be remiss in not doing a lift and shift, but then also introducing the value proposition and implementing the value proposition. It's just, if it's there, why would you ignore it? It is our philosophy anyways.
Absolutely. And in that situation, or in your other lift and shift projects, have you encountered customers that are not willing to move forward because they have to make that change?
No.
Okay.
No, and we present it just like I'm presenting it to you. It's like a no-brainer, and there's really, you have to go there because of the differences anyway. Why would you not enhance your business processes as part of this? And SMART, Wichita Public Schools is another one. Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation, they've all been on board. Lucas County, Ohio, going PeopleSoft to Cloud. Same thing. There's varying levels of process enhancement Some probably drift closer to implementation than platform upgrade, but there's always a certain degree of process enhancement that is just inherent in executing the platform upgrade. I mentioned we've got reestablish integrations, redevelop reports, and then part of that is also those configurations like fast formulas that don't migrate, that can't migrate, also rounding out the remaining configurations that couldn't be programmatically moved over to cloud applications. And then testing, of course. So in transporting the configuration, again, more details in the slides, which we'll send after the fact if we haven't sent already. What accelerates the configuration, I've already mentioned this, is the extract scripts and the loads. Same thing with migrating transactional data, and transactional data of course includes the master data where we've written the extract script. So for an AR invoice, you need a customer. So we're converting the customer master. On the supplier side with AP invoices and purchase orders and requisitions, you need your supplier master. So it's the master data as well as the transactional data. Here's the manual piece. Oftentimes with interfaces, we can more or less complete a lift and shift there. To use an example, a bank reconciliation file is going to be in most likely a BAI2 format and already being loaded, assuming that they've implemented cash management in eBusiness Suite or Peoplesoft. It's really a lift and shift. It's a standard format. You just need to remap it and hook it right back into cloud applications and then perform your system and integration testing as well as your acceptance testing. Testing, there are two different options here. Most of the time it's hands on the keyboard with functional test scripts, business process test scripts. The value there is the knowledge transfer and getting the client self-sufficient in the application such that they're ready to own the applications when they go live. What we also have, and we started this really with our quarterly support testing that goes with our optimization services. We've written a library of automated test scripts in a tool called iMacros. iMacros we had used extensively with our managed services for Peoplesoft, repurposed our knowledge of the tool into writing test scripts for cloud applications for our quarterly update testing in our support services. We've also used those and can use those for testing the cloud applications environment. The value there is the ability to do multiple test cycles, many more test cycles than you can do hands on the keyboard. And it's more thorough, frankly, than hands on the keyboard. So we've gone in both directions. And it really depends on the client and the client needs for, balancing self-sufficiency and hands on the keyboard with multiple iterations of testing before going live with cloud. Training, and this was on an earlier slide, what we've done to accelerate training, over and above presenting what's available from Oracle University, as far as the learning subscriptions, is we've written a library of job aids when strung together represent a business process. There's over 700 job aids in the library now, components of business processes across ERP and HCM. We bring that to the table as part of the offering, and then we're just having to update that training documentation for policy and procedures, which are going to be different no matter what client we walk into. But it does definitely accelerate the preparation of training documentation for end user training. And then go live oftentimes will include 4 to 6 weeks of post-production support, consistent with what we do with our implementations. If it's a payroll environment, it's typically a little bit more, so that we're covering multiple payroll cycles after go live. So to summarize the accelerators, we've got the summary scripts, and those are the scripts that interrogate the environment, identify custom objects, bolt-on objects, what reports are written in the environment, because the reporting tools clearly are inconsistent, and reports represent a complete rewrite in Oracle Transactional Business Intelligence or BI Publisher or Financial Reporting Studio to include SmartView. Moving the configuration data as well as the transactional data to include your master data. So the extract scripts, again, in the comma delimited format that we need to load cloud applications. The migration requirements document, the fit gapping is already done with eBusiness Suite and Peoplesoft. JD Edwards is a work in process for us. We've written the extract scripts. We haven't done that detailed fit gap document yet for JD Edwards. What we're doing is in our JD Edwards, both our World and Enterprise One migrations, we treated those as implementations, but we have the extract scripts as a byproduct of having completed those projects. The health check scripts, again, identify bad data. And some examples are there, the orphan records, the bad dates, the bad formats that we need to know before we run file-based data import or HCM data import. And then the extract scripts I had already mentioned multiple times. So, and any questions there? And I was just going to hit on a couple of successes, even though they're in public sector. The value proposition is still there with Wichita Public Schools in Lucas County. Lucas County is a great story. We just went live on HCM back about 3 weeks ago. They ran their first payroll this week, file delivered to the bank on time on Wednesday. We were off $50 gross, and I want to say it was $200 net on their first payroll. So a really good payroll success story there so far through the first payroll. Don't want to get ahead of myself. And then what's great about this on Cloud 9 with Susan Willis, just skipping back to Wichita Public Schools. So Wichita Public Schools was eBusiness Suite to cloud, Lucas County's Peoplesoft to cloud. In this on Cloud 9, and you'll see the link when we send you the PowerPoint as a follow-up, she actually quotes a return on investment, which is similar to what she's presenting to the board there at the district. And she's got kind of the math that goes behind that return on investment. So tying back to the Oracle value realization reports that I hit on the front end of the presentation, this kind of caps it off with a real world success story that Susan has backed up on her ROI in moving eBusiness Suite to cloud. This was just ERP. They're a PeopleSoft HCM environment. So right now, ERP Cloud is integrated to PeopleSoft HCM, and they're looking to do PeopleSoft to cloud on the HCM side a little further down the road. And then East Bay Mud, another PeopleSoft to cloud, ERP footprint as well here. And they were on a very outdated version of PeopleSoft. I want to say it was like 8.3 or 8.4. So like ancient. They hadn't done anything with the environment pretty much since the initial implementation back 20 years or so ago. I think that's all I had. Yeah, just kind of a closing message. Why us? So I went through that pretty quickly. Are there questions? Did you want me to pop over and show you some of the accelerators, just to show that there is really substance behind this pitch? Happy to do that. Wherever you guys want to go from here.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it. Go ahead. Lauren, please.
Yeah, sorry. I have a quick question. So for your experience with PeopleSoft, when you have a client who's extremely personalized that to fit them, does this process change? Does the timeline change? The objections change? Kind of, have you seen that in your experience, and how have you overcome that?
Yeah. And it's actually, if I was to go back to East Bay Mud, that was a longer timeline and a higher cost, because once we interrogated the environment, we saw, number one, with those interrogation scripts that I've referred to, we saw, number one, how outdated the environment was, being on 8.4, which we knew in advance. But then also everything they were doing was a bolt-on, which extends the timeline and the cost, because we've got more gaps to work through and resolve in that requirements phase, as well as more manual configuring to do, because we can't, migrate a bolt-on or a customization. It extends the timeline. It's a higher cost versus, a vanilla environment. We had worked quite a bit with foundation partners, I want to say a year and a half ago, SMB account, I believe, in Florida, very vanilla environment, using not quite all of financials. And the quote to them was like 200K or less. I think we even were below 200K to lift and shift. Unfortunately, they didn't move forward, but I just wanted to give you a comparison point that the timeline and cost is environment specific. The more customization, the more bolt-ons, the longer the timeline.
Got it. Thank you.
Your question, Lauren?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Bill, I know it was earlier in the presentation, but I would just be curious to hear, from your perspective, what are the pros of a company going with with Oracle and a partner like Sierra-Cedar that is currently migrating from EBS or PeopleSoft to our cloud products because of these established migration paths and accelerators?
Yeah, it goes all the way back to the beginning, Paul. It's the work effort on the client side is significantly reduced in that we've done a lot of the heavy lifting before we even walk in the door. With our implementation projects, the single biggest risk is getting data out of the legacy environment and into the format, cleansed and transformed into the format that we need to load cloud for data conversions. That every project, it's an issue, right? There's a lack of talent on the client side. There's just bad data coming out. They're not able to staff. Now we're seeing even turnover I'm working on a project now where the whole development team on the client side is turned over in the last 6 to 8 months, probably 8 months. So it's the risk mitigation as well as just the level of effort being decreased. I think that's the value proposition for Sierra-Cedar. The value proposition for cloud, we just point to Oracle's value realization reports and then, rattle off examples.
Absolutely. I think that's one area, team, that we often that we don't enlighten the customer on, right? These predefined migration paths, customers that are on-prem, Peoplesoft, EBS, JDE, whatever it may be, that are looking at other vendors, they have to consider the change management, as Bill was alluding to. The staff has experience with Oracle, so there's a certain additional level of change management that will have to come into play. As Bill mentioned, that could lead to longtime Oracle employees leaving. So then you have staff constraints. And Bill, how much time do you think you save customers by having these predefined paths versus if they had to, build all of this on their own by going through a different vendor or a different partner?
Right. I'll qualify it a little bit because that's kind of linked back to the question that Lauren asked, and every environment is a little different, but there's consistently a couple 3 months cut off of the front end because you don't have to write the extract scripts. As well as on the functional side, where we've already done the fit gap mapping, it's then a much quicker design phase for those two reasons. And fortunately, it's for each track, right? You've got a functional track of delivery, a technical track of delivery. Both of those are accelerated because we've done the grunt work in advance. Mm-hmm. And so you're just skipping right to, okay, well, where are the gaps that need to be remedied and the decisions that I have to make to deploy cloud? And you've already run your extract scripts, right? So
you're not only saving the customer time, but you're saving them a significant amount of resource investment on their side, right?
Exactly.
There goes 3 months of your project team having to allocate towards this migration path definition, and time is money. So not only from an internal cost, but also the amount of money that they would save by going with Sierra-Cedar versus another vendor. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and for a lot of this, what we're doing is we're leveraging our India team. I didn't even open up with that. We've got over 150 cloud consultants now. We're a firm, for those of you that don't know, 500 plus employees. I don't know the exact count. It's in the 500s, might even be up to 600 now. Close to 100 of those cloud consultants are US based. As you can see from my home office here outside of Denver, very much a virtual workforce. So 90-ish, approaching 100 cloud consultants all over the US, and then another 60, 70, 75 working out of India, our employees. And we leverage them extensively, especially for the technical work, the extracts, the mappings, the loads. Oftentimes, even with our public sector projects, that's being worked out of India with an onshore technical lead coordinating those activities. Other questions? Did everybody get lunch, Kim?
Yeah, I sent the link, and so that link is good all day. So if you weren't able to get lunch, then you can get dinner.
dinner.
Yeah, I definitely did. You probably heard me eating part of it at the beginning. So thank you.
I didn't get a link today. I got one last week to test it.
I didn't send you one today.
I didn't get one last week or this week. I think I deserve a link.
You do, that's true. I'll send you one for dinner.
All right, everyone. Well, really appreciate the time today. We'll
Let me just
include our
jump in real
content.
quick. Yeah, sorry. Before we end, this is Jeff Siegelbaum. I'm one of the account executives, and we'd love to follow up with any of you individually, kind of talk through any accounts that you might be working and how we can help, bring some of this, I guess, to any of your opportunities and kind of help you walk through this with your prospects, anywhere we can help. And certainly if you've just got a list and you want us to look at it and see, maybe we know some of the companies that you're looking to go ahead and sell to. So we'll reach out to you guys and see if we can set up some one-on-ones and kind of walk through your list. Is that, how does that sound, Paul?
Sounds like a plan. What other action items do we have from today's call, just from a next steps perspective?
Yeah, I think what would be interesting, Paul, and this really bridges back to what Jeff just said, it would be interesting to understand in the SMB patch how much of that is eBusiness Suite, PeopleSoft, and JD Edwards, right? Where is this applicable, and then how can we work together to attack those that are in your space, right?
Yep, it's a great point. I'm working with our sales operations lead on getting a report that will show us the total footprint for the Costas organization, and then of the current customers, what's the pipe attachment that we have right now, so we know the additional accounts that we still need to engage in and get some active pipeline against. So let's definitely meet and discuss that.
Great. Yeah, and what's I guess what's interesting, just a little Sierra-Cedar history, is our roots are in PeopleSoft and eBusiness Suite, and a very high percentage, especially of the eBusiness Suite consultants, just cross-trained and moved to cloud. So there's a group that knows both eBusiness Suite and cloud. There's a bigger group that knows PeopleSoft to cloud, both US and India. So they're able to talk the talk and understand both sides of the fence when they're executing on these projects.
And through the sales process.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
More important, right? We got to sell them first.
Anything else for today? Any other follow-ups? Looks like David joined. You there, David?
Hey, yeah, I did join. Sorry about that.
Right.
Dealing with the weekly family emergency of elderly care. Sorry, I'm late. So, Paul, I appreciate you help putting this together, and certainly look forward to Jeff and I following up with each of the team members individually in the next week or so, and hopefully getting let's get some momentum going here.
Absolutely. And to the Sierra-Cedar team, thank you all for all of the hard work that you folks clearly have put into this. This is an excellent presentation, very detailed, speaks to the value of not only moving from on-prem to Oracle, but partnering with Sierra-Cedar to do so, the business impact of those migrations and the value they're going to get in our cloud products. I'm very excited to see what we can generate together as a team. Appreciate all your help.
And just really quickly before everybody gets off, this is Cassian Evans. I came from the public sector team, and I've worked very well and a lot with the Sierra-Cedar team. So definitely, consider using them. Done some EBS to clouds, PeopleSoft to cloud with them, and had some successful engagement. So just want to make sure that I say that on the call today.
Yeah, Castine, where did we work together? Was it Wichita Public Schools?
I think it's Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually gone, and you probably know this, that's gone so well on the HCM side, that they accelerated the ERP side. And I think that that's going to close here before year end.
Yeah, I talked to Chris Myers not too long ago before he went on vacation. So yeah, he's been keeping me abreast of what's going on. So I'm happy. I think it's a good opportunity. You guys do a lot of great work. So you see that with the relationships you guys have with long-term customers.
Thank you. Appreciate that endorsement.
Absolutely.
Very much so. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks again for the time on Friday afternoon. I hope you guys enjoy your weekend and look forward to working together going forward.